Hey up my ducks, welcome to the Hermit's Cave. It's Simon here. It's nice to see so many people already in the chat, which is a real kind of testament to how popular my guest is today on Catching Up With. I feel have known this person, which seems like forever, but we've seen him more and more recently on a few other live chats as well as his own tarot. So his own channel, I should say, because he's just introduced to us as a YouTube community his first tarot deck, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on. So without further ado, can I bring in the fabulous Zane from Tarot, Toke and Witchery? Do you want to say hello, Zane?
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well today. Hope everybody has their cuppa.
Oh yes, the cuppa. Got mine, got my coffee. There's so many people in here saying hello to everybody. So it's great to see lovely people. I'll just do a quick I say quick, but people have been chatting for quite some time. So it might take a while, but we've got Jamie who can't stay because she's got a class, but hi Jamie, it was nice for you to pop in. Oh, there's somebody in here called Zane in here chatting.
Oh, nice.
We've got Aaron and Chris. We've got Emily, Celia, Richard, Selkie. We've got Gerald, and we have. Try and catch up because everybody's saying hello to each other. We've got David and Naomi, and we have Lana and Betsy. We also have Jilly. Hello, Jilly. And
Richard. Hey, Jilly.
And Robin, Matt, Emily, Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Malamia, Viola, and Claire. Claire's very local to me. She just lives up the road. Jeff. Hello, Jeff. Good to see you. And Sue. And Dragondile, nice to see you as well. So welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I don't know what it's like where you are in Philadelphia, Zane, but here it's dark already and it's wet and it's cold and it's really wintry. What's it like where you are?
It's actually today and the past couple of days it's been unseasonably nice.
Oh,
we had like a blizzard last week and got a whole bunch of snow, but then the last couple of days it's been sunny, the winds died down, so it's actually been pretty nice.
Wow.
I think tomorrow though it's supposed to get back into like the 20s. So
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, it's been saying since Monday here that we're going to have 4 days of snow, and all of a sudden woke up today and it's rain and all the snow has disappeared from the forecast for the next few days.
Well, that's kind of sad unless you're someone who hates snow.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I like it. So we had some a few weeks ago, but I don't like it when it stays around forever and it turns to that brown, slushy, horrible, or if it freezes and becomes like an ice rink out there.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
Yeah. So how are you doing anyway?
I'm doing really well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So let me also just say thank you right off the bat to you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's always nice to chat to people. And like I said, kind of in the introduction, I think you're so well known in the community, and that's through, I think, firstly, getting to know people in like chats,
Right.
And it really, a lot of people have said to me in the past about not being content creator, and I know you are a content creator now, but you can still be very much active in the community without
absolutely
necessarily having a channel. And you was part of the community for quite a while, weren't you, before you even started your channel?
I want to say maybe like 6, maybe even 8 months before I even considered putting my own face onto YouTube. I was always in the chats. I lurked for a little bit, but I pretty quickly felt at ease like with everybody in the community and jumped right into starting to chat with everybody, and the rest is history. So
yeah, but it's really nice to have you here. So
thank you.
So let's start off then with just asking you just to tell us a little bit about yourself. So just a little bit about who you are, your life, and that's good stuff.
All right. Oh gosh, I should have known this was going to be like the first question, and I didn't like prepare anything in my mind ahead of time, but I should have.
Sometimes not being prepared is better, I think, because
True.
you just give, don't you then?
True, and then I don't get stuck in what was I going to say. So I'm Zane. I'm from Pennsylvania in the U.S. I'm from a place called Lancaster, which is like South Central Pennsylvania. Um, Probably maybe like 2 hours away from Philly, if you're familiar at all with the layout of Pennsylvania. But yeah, I grew up here till I was about 18. Then I moved to upstate New York, where I lived for about 6 months before I joined the U.S. Army. I did that just on a whim. Woke up one day, asked my friend to go to the recruiter with me, and the next day I was like sworn into the military. And then I called my family and told them after the fact because I knew they'd tried to talk me out of it.
Wow.
So I called them, let them know I just swore into the Army. I'll be leaving for basic training in a month. Um, that was the end of 2018, like December 2018. So January 2019 is when I officially went to basic training and my military career started.
That's really recent. I didn't realize it was as recent as that.
Yeah, I was 19 when I joined, and then I was in for 6 years. I did a year in Arizona for my training for my job, which was, of course, after the 3 months of basic training I did. And then my first duty station was Grafenvor, Germany. So I was there for about 2.5 years, but a year of that I was deployed to Afghanistan for deployment. And then after that, my final duty station, I went from Germany to San Antonio, Texas, where I was until I got medically retired for PTSD in what was that 2015, and it was actually 6 years to the day. My like official in the army was January 22nd, and the day I got out was January 21st. 6 years later, so it was 6 years to the day.
Wow.
And
And can
then,
and I know we kind of had a little bit of a chat just before we went live, and you said, you're open to any questions.
mhm,
Because it always fascinates me because you're an out gay man, yeah,
yes,
and you make no qualms about that. You've spoken about it, and great that you do. Um, what was you out when you joined the army, and
I
how was that as an experience? And the reason why I'm asking is because obviously I'm old. I'm older than you by a good few years, and that was not an option for me.
right,
We weren't allowed to join the army if you was gay, and if actually you was found to be gay in the army, you was dismissed from all the forces actually, and it
right,
wasn't until 2002 in the UK that they started to allow gay people to enlist into the army. So,
right.
and I heard that for a few years, even after that, it was very difficult over here. So, what was your experience like?
Okay, so I was lucky. I'll say that first off, like overall, my experience as a whole was a lot better than most. I had, in general, a great experience. But yeah, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was still in effect when I joined back in 2009. Oh,
Okay,
the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. And it wasn't repealed until September 20th, I believe, 2011. I was actually in Afghanistan when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. And it was just great because a lot of the people in my unit who were stationed in other bases across Afghanistan that weren't stationed with me when we were deployed actually got in contact with me from their bases to say, congratulations, like, this is awesome. Like, what are your thoughts on this? So I had a lot of really close friends who made it a great experience and had my back. I will say that from time to time, even after Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, but more so beforehand, there were individuals here and there, of course, that took issue and tried to start drama. But again, it was Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So they couldn't flat out accuse me of anything unless they wanted to get in trouble. And they knew I wasn't the person to mess with because I'd get them in trouble because I don't play that game. You don't mess with people's lives, especially when their life doesn't affect you. So
yeah. So it was kind of like you had to set your stall out right from the beginning, and people knew where the boundary was with you.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, like I said, I was really lucky. Even in basic training, the first 3 months of my military career, people think boot camp, like drill sergeants screaming in your face, like they think it's this terrible experience. And for some people, I guess it could be a like traumatizing experience, especially if you're not used to like discipline in your life. And I was a little worried that when I joined, because like I said, I'm a big mouth, I don't take crap from people. I was worried about people screaming in my face and me having to stand there and take it.
Mm.
But I quickly adapted, and even my drill sergeants in basic training, when a few soldiers or even drill sergeants from other units tried to like mess with me, my drill sergeants were very much aware of it and had my back and like nipped it in the butt and told them, "Don't mess with my soldier. Like, you don't have any right or any need to do that." So they had my back from the beginning, which was really cool. I got lucky that I got the leadership and the like sergeants and officers that I had in my military career, because they all really looked out for me. And I
Yeah,
know that's not the same experience for a lot of LGBTQI in the military.
yeah. And I don't know, what that's like now. And I know you left, what, I suppose it would be
About
five,
six, just
five.
over 6 years, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what that's like now. I got a former colleague who joined the army who's female and gay, and her experience has been completely positive.
Oh, good.
But
I love hearing that, because, like I said, so many people have awful experiences.
yeah, but her views was that actually lesbians were more accepted in the army as opposed to her experiences were completely
Right,
different to gay male friends that she'd had. But again, that's going to be different from country to country as well, isn't it? So
right. And that just speaks to an even greater issue of toxic masculinity
yeah,
in the world, but more specifically in the military.
yeah, absolutely. And institutions like the forces, but even the police force. I can remember being at a gay pride march, and there was police officers marching, in gay pride over here, when you still couldn't be out as a serving police officer.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's in my lifetime, and not that long ago either. So I think in the last 20 years we've seen a lot of changes when it comes to institutions like the police service and the forces, but I still feel that there's perhaps a ways to go,
Oh,
really.
absolutely.
Yeah. And
And I
lots of
will
people,
say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, it's fine.
Um, but I feel like it does need to be brought up that, at least in the United States, um, the transgender ban in the military is something that's still all too real of an issue. I know Biden is, working to get that reversed, but
Good.
there, as much as like the gay community has been kind of brought into being protected in the military, transgender individuals still face a struggle every single day, not just in the military, obviously, but for this purpose of this conversation in the military, it's still like, I mean, one day to just wake up and be told your service doesn't matter anymore, we're dismissing you. Like, I can't imagine how that must feel and how invalidating that must be for people.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
always feel like I have to bring that up, even though there's been huge strides for part of our community. Our transgender brothers and sisters and non-binary individuals are still fighting the battle
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a part of it's linked to my work life, my professional work life, but I'm a part of a network, an LGBTQ plus network for people in FE. And the person who leads that network is non-binary.
Okay.
And they were saying that actually for trans people, because everybody tends to put LGBTQ plus together as a
Mm-hmm.
bracket, and that's a lot to do with history, and how the two communities would support each other. But of course, gender identity and sexual orientation are two separate things.
Right.
But they were saying that actually, when it comes to trans rights, they're probably 20 years behind gay rights in terms of, and particularly in places like the prison, and within prisons as well.
Absolutely.
as well as, the forces and police force and things like that. Who have we got here?
This is Sebastian. Sorry, didn't mean to. I was completely in the conversation, but he was whining a little bit because the people upstairs are being a little noisy. So, but
Hey,
yeah,
Sebastian.
he's got a little bit of anxiety going on, so I'll let him chill up here with me for a couple minutes till he calms down.
How old is he?
He just had his 6th birthday at the end of January.
Wow.
He's a tiny little guy, but he's an old man.
Oh.
Say hi,
Hey,
buddy.
Sebastian.
Say hi. Everybody just loves you. You're everybody's favorite part of the channel.
Yeah, everybody's in the chat like, puppy, yay. Yeah, and I just wanted to pass on as well, because I know it's when you are being interviewed, you don't always see all the comments, but there's a lot of people in the chat thanking you for your service as well.
Oh, I'm so sorry to miss that, but thank you so much for the support, everyone. I really appreciate that.
So you said that you, for the most of your life, you grew up in the Pennsylvania area, and then you moved to New York. Now I know they're very close together. If I'm talking to Julie, I know how close those two states are. But was that quite a shift from life in Pennsylvania to New York?
Not terribly, because I moved to like upstate New York, so I wasn't in the city. I was near, if you've ever heard of Rochester, I know that's a like popular area that a lot of people have heard of.
I've heard of it, but I know isn't where Jesse is and Carol Hertz like Woodstock? Is that also up that way?
I want to say yes, but don't quote me on that. I'm not the best with geography.
Okay.
But I'll say this: it was about I want to say like 45 minutes below the Canadian border, so it was like very upstate. A lot more like country out there, a lot more like cold weather up that way. So big difference. If I had moved into the city, it would have been a huge change. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of country up there, which is basically what Lancaster is country. You know, people know Lancaster, Pennsylvania for the Amish communities and stuff. So
yeah.
So not too bad of a culture shock.
Yeah. So growing up, were there any kind of spiritual influences that kind of shaped the path that you're on now that you could perhaps link back to?
I don't know if there's any like one specific or even a couple specific things. I'll say that I was never raised in a religious way. My mom's mom's side of the family, so my maternal grandmother's side of the family, all from this small town area that we're from in Pennsylvania, all very like Catholic, all grew up going to Catholic school. Even like one of my cousins that I grew up with, like a brother, he went to Catholic school. Thankfully, I was in public school because my mom wasn't about that life. But so I was around like the Catholic religion a lot growing up. Went to Sunday school here and there just because I had friends who went and I thought it would be a cool thing to do, I guess, with my friends. But was never really into the church life. It just never really resonated with me, especially as I got older and, you know, learned about a lot of the religious persecutions of people in the LGBT plus community. So that was just something that never really floated my boat, but also was something that was good for me because it let me know that I had a little bit of experience. I had enough to know, like, you know, I tried, not really my thing. Then when I moved to New York, I was actually staying with some friends who are members of the LDS church. So I, you know, had dinner with the missionaries and the sisters a lot and was around that kind of, you know, that view of religion for a while and got to learn a lot about that with talking to the missionaries and whatnot. So that was something I kind of looked into for a little while, but then again, ultimately decided wasn't for me. And then that's when I joined the military and just left. And religion just wasn't really a thing in my life from that point on. Cause, you know, I was worried about what was going on in the military. Religion just wasn't a thing. Yeah. But growing up, I always just had a connection to witchy everything. Even when I was a little kid, you know, I always wanted the books with the magic symbols in them. I've always had like a connection to like runes and sigils and stuff since I was a little kid. And like one of my cousins one time, I remember I like swiped from her house a book she had about like witches that had all these like symbols and like carvings pictured in it, and I was like fascinated by it. Um, and
Can you
then
remember the name of the book?
I honestly can't. And it wasn't even like a thick book. It was just like some, I don't even know, maybe it was meant for children, honestly, to kind of introduce them to the idea. It was a very thin book with a lot of pictures in it. But I don't remember the name of it. But then as a teenager, you know, also as I started getting more into like pop culture and like television and stuff, of course, I always have to say one of my biggest influences in life was Charmed. I have the triquetra on my wrist. It's just something that's always been a love of mine, is that show.
And
Um,
that features in your deck as well, that we'll talk about later, doesn't it?
yes, absolutely. And then you know, so from watching Charmed and Buffy and, you know, all those like late 90s, early 2000s shows, I started, you know, doing my own research, going to the bookstore. I've always been a big lover of books. So, you know, I started building my witchy book collection. And my one book that was like my end all be all, is that the saying? My like go to book was, I have it right here behind me, Silver Raven Wolf's Solitary Witch.
Okay, I've heard
This
of that book.
this is where it's a chunky
Yeah.
book. This was like, I want to say probably, yeah, my first like full on like book that I got when I was like first diving into the idea of practicing witchcraft, or at the time Wicca, because you know back in those days everything that you like looked up online and in books for the most part was based in Wicca at that point in time.
Yeah.
So you know, like so many in this community, my witchy journey started with a base in Wicca, but then quickly evolved into, you know, I don't usually like to use the term eclectic witchcraft because it's just such a blanket term at this point. But I guess if I had to identify, I'd say I'm an eclectic witch, and this is the book that started it all.
And I was actually going to ask you because I know that you identify as a witch, and your channel, you know, obviously with the title Tarot Toke Witchery, whether you class yourself as a green witch, a hedge witch, or so you class yourself as an eclectic witch. So you take parts of different paths and traditions.
Yes, absolutely. Because there's just, I love, especially when it comes to like magic and witchy things, I just love learning about everything that from different cultures, different, you know, time periods dating back as far as, you know, we have records of. Like, I just love gaining like magical knowledge from like everywhere I can. So it just seems really limiting to kind of class myself into one specific category of magic, because magic is like infinite. So like,
Yeah.
why would you want to limit yourself when you have infinite possibilities out in front of you?
Yeah. I suppose. I suppose there is comfort in being a part of a group. I know that, you know, when I looked into, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and, you know, they were saying, to really be part of this, you've got to join a coven. And I get that there is that sort of brotherhood, sisterhood, that sort of
Right. Oh yeah,
part.
what I said was not meant at all to discredit people who like
No, no.
classifying themselves in one way. I was just saying, for me, with my love of knowledge, it didn't make sense to class myself into one
Yeah.
specific
No, I didn't take
place.
it that you was being disrespectful in any way. It's the same as when, you know, you touched upon, you know, the LDS church, and some people are asking what LDS meant, but it's been answered. It's the Latter Day Saints. When I was a part of that, the one thing that I really found beneficial was having a support structure. You know,
Right.
having very close bonds. I didn't realize at the time, because I didn't really know any different, that that was actually very restrictive, you know, and in the end became quite suffocating. But when you come out of that into something that's bigger, that's when I had my Five of Pentacles moment, you know, where I'm feeling on the outside.
Right.
You're absolutely right. And I can relate to what you're saying about having the infinite available to you without having to have a very narrow kind of view of one aspect of that.
Right.
So so I guess why I understand why that's appealing to a lot of people. And we are seeing more and more people now who don't kind of pigeonhole themselves into a box of I believe this, you know, and are more kind of broad in in their practice. So
Right. And I love that because magic is what you make it. Magic's what you want it to be. So your practice can be whatever you want. And I think it's Ethany, right? Who says, like, as always, you know, take what you resonate with from what I say and leave the rest of it.
yeah,
And I love that because it's like, I'm here to teach you or, provide you with some information, take out of it what resonates with you. And if there's something that doesn't, you don't have to put that in your spiritual practice. That's your choice.
yeah. And Zane, can you hear me okay? Because Christine in the chat saying I sound very far away.
Oh, you sound great to me. I will say I have my headphones in, so you're literally right in my ears, but I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I think we had this the other day as well. You might just need to adjust your volume because I'm using a microphone and some people hear me really loud and clear, and a few others. It depends on the device you're using. You may need to either use earphones or crank up your volume.
Right. And YouTube's been giving everybody issues lately. Sometimes my sound's great, and then all of a sudden it cuts out, and I have to close the app altogether and reopen it, and then it's fine the rest of the time.
But also weird stuff like I've noticed people are responding to people in chat, and I can't even see that comment. And I'm not. I switch from live chat to top chat, and they're
Same.
responding. I'm like, I can't see this person's comment anywhere.
Right. And then I'll go through like a 5 minute period where I'm like, wait, the chat hasn't moved at all. And then all of a sudden, like 40
Ooh.
messages come through. And I'm like, that makes more sense because this chat's usually constantly moving.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad it's not just me.
Oh, not just you at all. And I want to say now to everybody in the chat, I'm really sorry if you're asking me questions. I'm just so engrossed in talking to Simon and just talking to all of you that I haven't even been looking down. I have the chat down in front of me, but I haven't even been looking because I'm just enjoying the experience.
Yeah. Well, I will keep an eye out for questions, and that's just kind of a reminder as well. If you do have any questions that you want me to put to Zane, then do pop them in capitals or tag me.
I just don't want anyone to think I'm like ignoring them or skipping over their messages. I'm terrible. Plus, my eyesight's so bad. I have my glasses on. I can still barely see the small letters.
I can relate. All right. So you've talked about kind of your influences in your early years, and then your move to New York and then into the army. What led you to where you are now on your spiritual path, and also how you discovered the tarot?
Okay, so I'll start off with real quick. The tarot I discovered when I want to say 13 on a field trip for school, actually. In middle school, we went to the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair, and there was a fortune teller stand. I know a lot of people don't really like that term, but that's what she identified with. There was a big sign that said fortune teller, and I didn't get my cards read or anything, but of course, like I said, I've always been into witchy everything, so I like jumped at the opportunity to go in and look around. And I didn't have like, not that my parents would have cared, but I didn't have any like parents around, so it was like I could just kind of look around and enjoy myself in this little witchy space. And I found the Ellen Cannon Reed Witches Tarot for sale there. And that was the first ever deck I bought with my own money on my field trip. And then just over the years, I only ever had that one deck. And I would just, if I felt the urge, like if something like popped into my head and was like, you should pull some tarot cards for that or whatever, or just the feeling of whatever like resonated in me or came up in me, I'd be like, I haven't pulled a card in a while. Let me get the deck out. But it was just very few and far between, but it was just something that was always there as like a comfort. And then even like in the military, no matter where I was stationed, when I moved, that deck always moved with me. I even took it to Afghanistan with me. It was just a comfort to know that it was always there. Yeah. And then I got out of the military, like I said, 2015. And I moved to Orlando, Florida for a little while. I was working at Disney World. And then I moved back up here to Pennsylvania where all my family is, all my immediate family. And when I moved back to Pennsylvania, I started to like really dive into the world of YouTube. And I started to kind of discover like, witchy YouTubers and all that. So it kind of reignited that passion that had kind of been moved to the back burner, like while I was in the military and stuff. So I started to discover some like witchy YouTubers. Like there's one called Hearth Witch that I really like. There's an individual named the Witch of Wonderlust. I really like her content. And I just kind of got into that world and then reignited that passion, like I said. And then just last year, it's crazy to think that it's only been a year, a little over a year, because I want to say it was like maybe November of 2019. So a year and a couple months ago. I had just, I don't even remember if I was looking up a new deck that I had saw and I wanted to see if anybody had showed cards from it on YouTube or not, or if it just happened to pop up on my recommended feed. There was an individual in the community. She was doing a walkthrough of a deck, and I was like, I never even thought to look for like tarot YouTubers on here. And then she actually mentioned you by name and how much she really loved your content and was like, you know, you definitely have to go check him out. So I checked out your channel, and then through you, I found Becca, and then the rest is just history. I've been a member of the community ever since, and now it just being part of this community has sparked my love for tarot so much more. I mean, to the point where now I'm, like you mentioned earlier, I've been creating decks, and it's like I finish one and I feel this void, and I'm like, I need to like create more cards. I've just been having this like spark in me to create. And it's all because, you know, the more I create cards, the more it like strengthens my bond to the tarot and my connection to the meanings of the cards. And it's like, well, now I want to dive in and do a deck that kind of shows it from this aspect, as opposed to, you know, like the Zany tarot is very much, I want to say there's probably a lot of like, I'd say there's some deep cards in there, but it's all kind of done with like joyful, playful imagery in a way. So it's like you have that joyful side, but now I'm like, well, now what if I want to create something that's a little bit, you know, quote unquote darker? So it's just really ignited that passion in me to like explore all facets of the tarot.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Brilliant.
I'm just like, get me talking about the tarot and I can talk and talk.
No, this is it's a dream to be able to sit here and ask questions, and just you give such, you know, in-depth and well thought out answers. It's an absolute dream, because I can just sit back and listen and enjoy.
Thank you.
Everybody watching. So yeah, well, let's come on to that now then, being as you've started to talk about it. Okay. So firstly, you, as I said, you was kind of in the community chatting away, and we got to know you, and then you started a channel. When was that? Was that probably about 6 months, 7 months ago?
Ooh, I want to say at this point, maybe about 8 months ago.
Wow.
It's crazy to think. Sometimes it feels like it was yesterday, and then sometimes I'm like, really? That wasn't like 2 years ago? It's crazy how like sense of time just like warps every other day, especially time has no meaning these days in pandemic.
It was the same when I interviewed Chris last month, you know, and he was saying that he's only had his channel since August. It was like, what?
That's crazy to think.
We just know people so well, don't we, in this community?
Exactly.
You know, every time a tarathon ends, and I think about the next year, I'm thinking, you know, I wonder who will be part of it next year. We've not even met them yet. You know?
Right. It's so cool to think about.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you, Chris. He's put a link to your channel into the chat, and
thank you.
Put one for your deck as well. So that's great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
And if you're watching this back, if you look at the blurb below this video, there's also a link to Zane's channel and also to the Make Playing Cards shop. So do check them out.
Awesome. Thank you.
So you started your channel a few months ago. And then what was the inspiration? Because you did an Oracle deck first.
I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I started, at first I was the Toke Witch. And then when I changed the name, I wanted something that was still like recognizable as me. So, you know, had to keep the Toke and the witch part in there. So Toke Witchery. And as soon as I thought of it, I was like, that's it. I love it. So I started forward as Toke Witchery then. And I saw actually Kim from Abundant Life Tarot. She's another content creator that's in this community who I absolutely adore.
Love love her.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's a beautiful person inside and out, and her content is just wonderful. And she had created a few months back now a deck that it was, I want to say her video was called like unboxing my like ancestral oracle deck or something. She had created her own ancestral work oracle deck on Make Playing Cards and was showing off like the images and like the keywords that she had put with them. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, I love that idea of, being able to get in touch with, like your ancestral energy and your ancestral magic, or just any kind of magic through creating cards that have a personal connection to you and, evoke a feeling in you that you can put as like a keyword with that image that's like just so much of you in that deck and in those cards. And so instantly, I think probably the same day that I saw that video, maybe even in the middle of the video, I might have stopped it and like looked online to see where you could find, because she had used royalty-free photography images. And I really liked that idea. And I was like, well, where do you find photography like that where people, are okay with you using their images to do with as you please? And so I looked into that. I found an app called Unsplash. And they have, I want to say, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of just like people get on there and post their photography, and they make it all available to you for you to use as you like. And there's just, like I said, so much on there for you to like sort through. And I would just go through, and if I saw an image that evoked a feeling in me, I'd save it to like a specific folder.
Could you search for like a topic or?
Yes, absolutely. Which is something later that was part of the process. I started, I was like, I want a card that represents this. Let me search for this keyword that evokes that feeling in me and see what comes up. But at first, it just started with me looking through the images and finding ones that really resonated with me or like evoked a strong like emotion or feeling in me. And I'd be like, let me save that, keep it for later, and I'll come back at the end when I have all these images and, see what I feel like, if there's a keyword or phrase that I think would match with this perfectly that can be part of the deck. And then once I did that and had those images sorted out, that's when I started searching for specific things like we were just talking about. And it just started building and building. And I was like, I could keep adding cards and adding cards. I really need to refine this a little bit and, take out things that might be repetitive or things that could be linked to one card, but I've created like 3 different versions that could all represent the same thing. Let me cut some of those out. And then, yeah, that just became the process. And I started to fall in love with that whole process as I went. And then one day I had met Chris through the community online, Chris from Elemental Cartomancy. Like anybody here doesn't know who Chris is. But yeah, and I told him what I was doing, and I started, asking him if it was okay if I sent some of the images and if I could get his feedback on like the images that I chose and the keywords that I paired with them, or if there were any things that eventually ended up sending him all of the cards because I just valued his opinion so much. And I was like, are there any things that you think should be included in the deck that don't have a representation? And I always remember he said, well, what about pain and pleasure? And I said, I can't believe out of all these cards, those were 2 things that I never even had. Even when I was editing things out, those were just never part of the deck. How could I forget those? And it just really was like spoke to me. And I was like, they definitely need to be a part of the deck. So I created my version of those 2 cards and then sent them to him. And he was like, I love them. And I was like, I think those are the final 2 cards. I think the deck's complete. And then he was the one that was really like, Zane, these images are amazing. These cards are amazing. I really need this in my life. You need to make this available for people. And so I was like, hey, I can make it available and I can send you the link from my Make Playing Cards shop. And I said, like, because I didn't do it to make money. Like I said, I first did it because I wanted cards that really resonated with me and had a piece of me in them. And then from that point on, Chris started mentioning the Zoracle, as he nicknamed it. And then people will be like, well, what's the Zoracle? Where can I find it? Because I never really put it out there, like advertised it or anything like that. It was just, something I did that was creative that my friend loved, that I made available for him. And then it kind of caught on and people were like, oh my gosh, those cards are awesome. Where can I get them? And then Jamie bought some. And then I'm trying to think who else by name. I'm just on the spot. I can't think, but there were so many people that reached out and were like, I love your cards. I'm going to order some. And it just started to kind of spread like wildfire. And I can't say thank you enough to Chris and Jamie and everyone who's now has like come to love the cards as I've made more of them and who have supported me in the decks.
As Zoracle, we do that a lot in the community, don't we? With Sassy Burrito, Dirty Pam, and things like that. We have these names, and they just tend to stick. So,
and I love it. And who better to give the deck a nickname than someone who had played such a part in the completion of the deck, like Chris did. And I love this Oracle. It's perfect. At this point, I don't even call it the Toke Witch Oracle.
No, from this moment, well, not from this moment on, but forever after known as the Oracle. So
right.
That then gave you the impetus for going for a tarot deck, I assume.
Yes, but actually before the tarot deck, there was one more step, because as I started to flip through some of the cards in the Oracle deck, I was like, there was one card in specific, which was the Pleasure card, which anybody, I don't know how many people here have seen the original from the first version of the Oracle deck. The Pleasure card was a picture of like a banana with like frosting running down it. So it was kind of like a little bit of a sexual innuendo. And I started to think, some of these cards might be a little unsavory for some people and could turn them off from like resonating with the cards. So I decided to make a revised edition, as I called it, where, I changed some of the images, or even took a couple out that I ended up thinking were repetitive that should have been cut out in the first editing of the original version, and then added some extra cards or added some newer versions of the cards and made the second edition. And I changed the backs as well to, spice it up a little bit. And then, so then I listed that as the Toke Witch Oracle Revised Edition. So both versions are available, and you can see previews on Make Playing Cards to see the differences between the two decks. But then after that, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I felt such a connection to these Oracle cards because I created them myself. And I'm still on my tarot journey of learning, because with my like PTSD and my ADHD, it's hard for me to memorize things. So, it was like I was always constantly, which I mean, we all are constantly learning when it comes to the tarot, but it was like I would find myself having to look things up in the book still. And it's like, I've been reading these cards for how many years now, and I still have to look things up in a book. And I was like, creating my own tarot deck could really strengthen my bond with the meanings and really kind of like solidify those in me and give me a personal connection. So when I see that card, I know why I personally put that symbolism in there. I know what it means to me, and I'll instantly know what that card means. No memorization necessary. And so that's what really drove me to start creating the Toke Witch Oracle, here I go, the Zany Tarot. And honestly, I'll say it felt like a long process in some ways, but it was really not that long. Once I started going with it, like spirit or whatever you want to call it would just speak to me and be like, I would get an image in my head and be like, okay, now I need to translate this digitally onto my version of this card that I'm creating. And like the images just started flowing once my intuition really started opening up.
And did you use the same format as with the Oracle then? So because from what I've seen of the Oracle, and as you know, I've got the tarot coming, they seem different.
Very much so.
Yeah. So what medium did you use for the tarot?
Okay, so like I had said with the Oracle cards, I'll just hold two up here so you can see. It's photography based. So like you can see, here's the Canyon card and the Abundance card, and it's all photography based. But then for the tarot deck, like I had said earlier, I wanted something that was a little more playful, but that could also be used for deep, meaningful readings. And I decided I wanted animation for the tarot deck. And I've always loved sketching and drawing cartoons and stuff since I was little, but I'm not very well versed in digital artwork creation at this point. And that's kind of the vibe I wanted. So I found this app. It's actually the app that I used to create the image files for the Oracle cards, But they also, if you get like a pro version of that app, they offer access to all of their royalty free like animations, like thousands upon thousands of, you know, individual little animation pieces and from all these different creators, so all different art styles. And I really was like, you know, I think that's cool. An animated deck that uses different animation styles, but is all done by the same creator who like put the deck together. Because you see like, you know, those decks where it's like 78 artists, each one created a different card. And sometimes people don't really feel a connect because every artist had their own vision of what they were trying to create with their artwork. Whereas even though with my deck it's different types of animation, the feeling and like meanings that went into the cards were all by me. So I used the animation, and again, it's all royalty free animation, so you can manipulate it, change the colors, add to it as you please to use for your own creations. And so each individual, like if you look at this card, the full card, each individual little piece of this card was its own little piece of animation. These trees, the bird's nest, the bird, the sky in the background, the sun, the boy himself, the dog, the cliff. They're all individual pieces that I stretched, manipulated, collaged together to create the scene that I wanted to evoke, the emotion I was looking to evoke. So it's like each of these cards, it might look kind of simple, but there are so many pieces that were built on top of each other to create this scene and to evoke this feeling in people.
And how long? Sorry, how long would that take for? Because again, maybe it's because of my own limitations with like my ADD. The patience that must take to layer upon layer until you've got the image that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine you don't get it right every time, and you must strip it all back and be putting on.
Absolutely, absolutely. That happens so many times. But at first, you know, it was a learning curve because I was learning a new medium, you know, working with digital art and like, you know, a digital art like studio app. Like I had to learn all of the controls and all of that. So going into it, it was a little frustrating at first, just getting used to it. And then once I started really getting in the swing of things and getting into the motions of it and got down with the process, like I said, my intuition just really opened up and started flowing more, and the images just started popping up in my head. And then I was like, that's what I need to turn into this card. So that made it a little easier that the images were coming to me after a while. So then all I had to worry about was translating the image in my head onto the card rather than just coming up with an image out of nowhere, which is how it started. Because, you know, like I said, starting with something that was new to me, I was just kind of piecing things together and trying this here and this here. And then, yeah, once the intuition took over and I had the image in my head and just had to translate it onto the card, it made it so much quicker. But even then, like you said, there was cards even when I got to like the last final cards of the deck, which I think kings were probably the last ones that I did, the 4 kings. I redid several of those so many times because I was like, this just isn't resonating with me like I originally thought it would, or like it's not evoking that emotion in me that it did in my head when I was picturing it. So it was definitely a process, but the further I got into it, the easier it came and the quicker it went, and the more my intuition played a part in the creation.
Would you say generally anyway, you're a visual learner?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I have really hard time like just listening to people tell me how to do something and then applying it myself. Like, but if you show me like right in front of me and I can do it along with you, then I'm good.
Yeah. Yes, that sounds exactly like me. I'm a blend between being a visual learner and a kinesthetic learner, where I have to practically have a go sometimes for me to. So me hearing you talk about that just seems really, you know, I'm like sitting there thinking I just wouldn't be able to cope with that. But then
Right. But then once I got the process down, like I said, and it was like, it took me maybe like a full suit or like maybe through all the majors to get completely comfortable with it. But then once I did and had all of like, you know, the steps and the creative process down, I could just enjoy creating the images and bringing the scenes to life.
Yeah. And Naomi's asked, can you ask Zane why he chose a night sky for the fall?
Okay, so I don't want this to sound like a cop out, but for some of the cards, this is actually one that was the first card I created. Is that right? Yeah, this was the first card I created. I actually went back about halfway through the deck and changed the sky because originally it was like a blue sky with clouds in the back and the sun, the same sun that's in there. I didn't change that part, but the background I did change about halfway through the creation of the deck because the more I looked at it, like I said, I had created it early on. So when I was flipping through all the cards I had created already, that one just kept standing out to me and saying something's off. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And then just something in my head said, try changing the sky. And I found this, the image or the artwork that I ended up using to create. It's like a just a plain background with the stars overlaid. And it was originally like a black background with like cream colored stars. And so I started playing around with the coloring of it, changed the sky to like a deep purple and the stars to like a yellowy color. And I stretched it and then like sent it to the background of the image. And as soon as I placed that starry sky, I was like, that completely is what I was trying to. That it just gave me that feeling that I had originally been looking for my full card. So there wasn't any specific reason other than that it wasn't speaking to me as like the typical sunny sky background like you usually see in a full card. And as soon as I just had that idea in my head to try the stars and I saw it, it just spoke to me and came to life. And I was like, that's the one I'm using. It's perfect. It evokes a lot of this deck was about when I looked at the cards, I wanted it to evoke a feeling or an emotion. So when I saw the final product and that, I was just like, oh, that's it. I knew that that's the background I needed to use. So I don't want to like give it as a cop out as I just had a feeling and that's what I went with, but that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, but it has to feel right, doesn't it? You know, you're creating something that is you're going to put out into the world that people are going to purchase and
Right.
with as a spiritual tool. You're going to want it to be right because you're putting your name to it.
Right.
I always imagine, and you can tell me if this is the case or not, but I always think that I would imagine that deck creators really agonize more over the full card because it's the first card. Every
Absolutely.
unboxing you'll ever watch on YouTube, unless there's a deck that puts the fall at the end. But you open that deck up, and let's take a look at the cards. And what do you see first? You see the full card.
Yeah.
That kind of sets the bar, doesn't it?
It kind
For
of puts a little pressure on that one card.
did you find that then?
Um, Not necessarily when it came to like first creating it, because like I said, it was like a new adventure. I was just trying out this new collage style with animation. So it was kind of like I was just really excited. Like I'm creating my first ever tarot card. Like this
Yeah,
is so cool. But then, like I said, the more I looked at it throughout the creation of the rest of the deck, the more I felt pressure to get it exactly right. And the more I was like, this background's not right. Something's off about that first card. I need to fix it. So not at first, but then the more that I sat with the image, the more I was like, yeah, pressure. Like I need to get this card perfect.
yeah. And now that you've completed the process and your deck is out there, are you are you 100% happy with it, or do you feel because sometimes you can look at something and think that's great, I've got it, and it goes out there, and then people start to show it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you 100% happy with it and with it being as it is, or would you make any changes?
I'm gonna say yes. I'm
Good.
very happy with it. There are little things here and there that I noticed that I think, I could have changed that or I could have done this differently or put this instead of that, but not to the extent where I wish I had done that. Like I could see where some people might be like, well, this would have been maybe a little more whatever, but I'm just so proud of it that that overtakes any of that, and I'm so happy with it.
Good.
And yeah, and I just wanted to touch back, if I can, on when I was talking about the creative process and the intuition starting to play a bigger role the further I got into the deck. There were certain things in this deck that the one card that always stands out when I think about this in my head is the Nine of Pentacles. Is it the nine? Yeah, the Nine of Pentacles. And I never really, because like I said, I'm still on my tarot learning journey. There was never an association in my head of that card having a bird in it, like a bird being perched on her arm.
Yeah.
And but something in my intuition told me, you know, like I was just thinking, and I was like, I feel like I need to put a hummingbird following in her path behind her in this image. And I
Wow.
put that hummingbird on there, and I was like, there's just something about that that feels right. And then in somebody's video, I was watching on their channel, and they were like, oh, I love this Nine of Pentacles in this deck. And look, she has the traditional bird on her arm. And I was like, wait, I never even like made that association that she's supposed to have a bird with her. But my intuition had told me, put this bird in that card. It needs to be there. And
Wow.
that just really solidified that, you know, my intuition was leading me on the right path with what I was creating.
Brilliant. Wow, that's great. What a story. So obviously, you know, your deck's out there now and you're starting to see reviews. I can't wait for mine to come.
I'm so excited for you to get it. I'm excited for everyone to get their copies that's ordered one.
Yeah, it's always a waiting game with NPC. I've waited.
Absolutely, especially overseas. Well, overseas from where we are, but
Yeah, but I've noticed that people that are ordering around the same time that are in the States are getting theirs, you know, and even though we're not in the EU, we're still in Europe, you know,
right.
we haven't anchored ourselves to the west,
Floated away.
but it's still not here yet. But never mind. Is that it? Or have you got something else creatively kind of ticking over?
So I actually have already started playing around with 2 new tarot decks.
2.
Yes, another one that's another animated one. Once I got that like really started playing with that animation and collage style, I like fell in love with it. And I was like, when I was done with it, I was like, I just want to keep creating more cards. So I've only got, I think, 9 cards done so far. I'm really just taking my time with it and enjoying the fun of the process of creating the cards. But yeah, so I'm creating another like animation style tarot deck. And then I actually am creating a tarot deck to pair with the Zoracle that's photography based and kind of has a lot more of a earthy kind of like dark, but not necessarily dark, but just that like that darker feeling that the Zoracle I feel like kind of gives in some of the imagery. I wanted a tarot deck to pair with that because even though these are both created by me, they don't necessarily art wise vibe together the best. And I was like, I really want a tarot deck that I can pair with this, with the Zoracle, and just, you know, have those energies just build on top of each other and like intertwine with each other. So I want to say I have maybe around 20 cards from that deck created so far. Wow. And I've really been enjoying that process.
There's no flies on you. Wow. So I suppose the natural question is then, if you're creating a tarot deck to pair with the Zoracle, would you create an Oracle to pair with the Zany Tarot?
I'm definitely thinking about that, and it's on the list of things to look into, but that's one that I'm putting off for the time being to focus on the 2 decks I already started, because creating 2 different ones with 2 different vibes at the same time is already like going back and forth between 2 different mindsets and energies for the decks. Adding a 3rd one into the mix, I'm just like, that might be a little too much all at once right now, but it's definitely on my list of things that I would like to create.
Cool.
But again, I'm just like kind of taking my time and enjoying the process right now and having fun with it.
Absolutely. And that's the main thing. If you put yourself under too much pressure, then very often the fun element goes out of it, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
That stunts the creative process anyway. Wow, I just heard the bells bonging. I'm like, we've been talking for an hour, and I'm like, question 5.
Oh wow, it's already been an hour.
I could talk to you all night. If I didn't have tarot times tonight, I'd be like, do you know what? Let's make it 2 hours. But we're all right.
And I'd be down.
So yeah, where you are now? So you're back home.
Yes, in Pennsylvania for now.
What's the community like around you? Is it? Are you able to, when we're not in pandemic times, access any kind of spiritual groups? I know you're a solitary witch, but is there New Age shops? What's your community like?
There are some really cool small, like privately owned small business witchy shops in the area, or in the general, not immediate area, but within driving distance if you're willing to drive a little bit. Um, like right up the road, probably about a half an hour up the road into Harrisburg, which is the Pennsylvania capital. Is that right? I'm so bad. I believe I'm gonna get read to filth for this. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Harrisburg is the capital. But yeah, there's probably like my favorite witchy shop. It's called the Heaven and Earth shop,
Okay.
and it was a little odd to me at first that a witchy shop would have like heaven in the title, but I love the shop, and it just, as soon as you walk in the door, you just have like the best energy and the best feeling like emanating from the place. And I've gotten a lot of like crystals and like crystal jewelry, like my black tourmaline and my amethyst that I wear all the time. I got from there.
Popped up.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not doing the best job at showing them, but I always wear a little.
That's nice.
Oh my gosh, I'm like a mess. My black tourmaline and my amethyst, and I got them from her shop, and I absolutely love them. And I have a bunch more of crystals that I got from her on my altar and on my bookshelves. And then there's one that's just across the river from where I am, maybe like a 20-25 minute drive. That one's called New Visions Books and Gifts. That one's a little more pricey, but they have a whole wall of tarot and oracle decks. So I absolutely love going in there when I'm looking for new decks if I'm not going to buy them online. And as far as like a witchy like community, I am sure there are plenty of people around here who identify as part of the witchy community, but it's just not really something I've ever felt the need to like reach out for, because like you said, I enjoy being like a solitary witch, and I love my online friends and my online community, and I don't feel the need to really have that like local community. It's just not something that I'm not opposed to it. It's just not something that I felt the need to look into. But as far as my immediate like friends and family being part of my community, my best friend, even though she's not quite as into it as I am, she has always also just kind of been into like witchy and magical stuff to some degree. I got her first oracle deck and her first tarot deck for Christmas and her birthday this past year. I got her the Tarot of the Divine for her first ever tarot deck, because she's also a big reader, so she loves like stories and like fairy tales and stuff. And then for her oracle deck, there's a website online, it's called Avec la Vie is the website. And they there's like 3 decks that they created. One that's more like mystical creatures, one that's more like real life animals, and then one that's like plant life. And they're all like watercolor and done on this really pretty like canvas paper. And I got her that as the like magical beings version for her first ever oracle deck. So I do have some like, my family's always been supportive. They've been supportive when they found out that I was doing these live interviews as part of the tarot community. They've all been really supportive. So that's been great.
Yeah, that is great. Sage Advice Tarot says, would Zane recommend using both the oracle decks together for readings?
Okay, so I will say this. All cards on the table, no pun intended. The oracle decks, I'm assuming she means the 2 versions of this oracle. I would say you don't necessarily need to use both or need to have both. Like I said, the second version still has a lot of the same imagery as the first version. It just has a couple extra cards and a couple like altered images, but like the same titles with them and stuff, just to kind of vibe more with like the general community at large. So I would say you could, maybe if you wanted to take like the extra cards that don't appear at all in the first version of the deck, if you wanted to take them out of this, even though the backs are different, I think the energy is still the same. You could put those in with the other version of the deck, shuffle those in, and read them with that deck. but I wouldn't necessarily feel that you would need both full decks. And that might be, you might get a little redundancy because there are so many of the cards that are similar or the same between the two versions. But hey, I mean, if you want to try it and let me know, or hey, maybe I'll even try it on my channel and work with both decks at the same time. And that's actually kind of something cool to look into to see, you know, what kind of energy and what kind of readings I would get out of doing that.
And I suppose if Sage Advice was referring as well, perhaps to the next deck that you create, could you merge them together? I suppose like when we was talking the other day about soul cards 1 and 2, you can put them together and have like even
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and as far as, you know, like I said about creating, eventually, hopefully creating an Oracle deck to match the vibe of the Zany Tarot more, I think it could be cool to use like that style, like the animation style Oracle deck with the more, you know, real life photography of the Zoracle. I think that could be cool to explore, you know, using those two kinds of decks together to do a more like inner child, like mixed in with like, you know, the more like adult, I don't want to say adult, but the more like mature, like darker energy of this deck. It could be cool to mix those two opposing energies together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry if I didn't explain that well. I'm trying to like get all my thoughts out and my mind's going a mile a minute.
Brilliantly. So when you go to your shop and you see all the tarot decks, what are you kind of, do you have a preference for one system, or if so, what is that? Or are you more kind of eclectic with tarot and systems as well?
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not opposed, like I don't dislike any styles or systems of tarot, but I will say that if I'm gonna buy a deck, it's usually gonna be an RWS based deck to some degree. I think I have two Marseille decks, but I still haven't like taken my deep dive into learning Marseille yet. I have the Terra Seren and the New Choice Tarot, which I was very lucky to be able to acquire from our lovely Jamie
Oh,
at Wandering Mountain Bardic Path. She had a copy of it, and she said that she just felt that I needed to have it. And so she hooked me up with it, and I am forever grateful because I always said if I was going to start diving in and learning Marseille, I wanted it to be with that deck, which is why even though I had the Terra Seren for a while now, I never started like learning Marseille because I wanted to do it with the New Choice. So that's on my list of things to start this year is diving into the Marseille a little bit. I know they do a Marseille study group on Sundays, some of the members of our community. So I'm looking into maybe joining that group. And I have one Lenormand deck, which is the Green Glyphs Lenormand.
oh, James Ori.
And I absolutely love the style and the energy and the artwork of that deck, but I have never used it for an actual reading before. I just love having it and love flipping through the cards. It like brings me peace just looking at the imagery. But yeah, sorry, long-winded answer. I prefer RWS, but I'm open to all forms of tarot because everything about tarot, I love it.
And I rather suspected that would be the answer with creating the deck.
Right.
Very much in that style.
Yeah, and I wanted it very much to be rooted in RWS, but as somebody in one of the comments I replied to earlier under someone's walkthrough of the Zany Tarot, they said that it, even though it's rooted in RWS, the cards tell their own stories and their own version of the journey of the RWS. And I really loved that they said that because that's what I wanted. Based in RWS, but they have their own story to them. And, you know, yeah, they tell their own story. I love that.
Brilliant. And when choosing a tarot deck, do you have any favorite cards that have to be done right? And if so, how did that play out when creating yours?
I do, actually. I won't say that, like, if I love all the cards in a deck, but then there's like one card that I normally like absolutely have to love, and that's the only card that I happen to not like, it won't necessarily hinder me from getting the deck if that's the only card. But usually I'll say I look at the Magician because that's one of my birth cards, and it's just the card I've always resonated with because to me that's like the epitome of like witchy energy in the tarot deck is the Magician. and that's just something I've always resonated with. So the Magician, this isn't a make or break one, but I tend to always look at the hanged person, the hanged individual, whether it be man, woman, non-binary, the hanged one. Um, and is there any other ones that I used to really like look at the Fool, and if the Fool wasn't one that I liked right off the bat, I would be like, but that one not so much anymore. So mainly probably just the Magician.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what it is about the card that like has to be right for me. It's just, again, that feeling I get when I look at it. I want it to evoke something in me and evoke that just like feeling and that energy that's meant to be in that card. And if I feel that, then I know the deck's for me.
Yeah.
Like the
Cool.
Botan Tarot, I saw the Magician card and the Devil card, and both of those, like those were the first two cards I saw. And before I saw any of the other cards, I was like, I'm ordering this deck.
I love it when that happens, though. Sometimes it can just be a image, can't it? And then
100%.
for me, it'll either I'll see an image and think I need to know more about this deck. Let me find and watch a walkthrough, or I'll just see an image and I'm like, gotta have it.
Absolutely. The one that always stands out in my mind for like a one card purchase is the Pride Tarot. The one, and then that's one of those decks is it's like from a lot of different creators or a lot of different artists. And the one card in that deck, I saw it and instantly I was like, I'm getting the deck. I don't even care if I don't like half the other cards in the deck. I just want a deck that has this card in it. And it was the sun card. No, sorry, the star card. And it's a merman under the water, like with the light shining down through the water. And I've always just felt a connection to like mer people. Little Mermaid was my all-time favorite movie when I was little. And something about that card just really spoke to me.
And did you find the original deck? Because isn't the Pride Tarot?
It's like a collection of cards from other decks, which I didn't know at first.
Yeah.
But I was never able to find. I tried looking into it, and I was able to find like the artist that created it, but I was never able to find a deck that card belonged to other than the Pride Tarot.
Oh, well, if anybody's watching and they know the original deck, then
please let me know.
There was Patrick Valenza's card from Deviant Moon.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, okay.
That's actually how I figured it out, that it was cards from other decks. Was I saw Deviant Moon cards in there, and I was like, oh, okay. And that's what led me to try to look up where that star card had come from, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah. Unless it's, existing art and art used in other decks and, just created for that tarot like they do with 78. It could be amalgamation of all of that, couldn't it? But
absolutely.
Okay. So any cards you find particularly challenging, and did you find any cards challenging when creating your deck that you really, I know you talked about the Kings in particular, but did you feel any sort of pressure to get certain ones right because of how they're perhaps viewed by others?
I'll have to think about this as a whole while I'm talking. I'll have to think about it. But there was one card that, just because I have an issue connecting to the imagery usually in like typical RWS decks, it was one that I really struggled with how I wanted to depict it. And that was the Eight of Wands. Like the whole reason I still don't own the Melanated Tarot, which is a deck that I've wanted for so long now, I don't own it because the backs of that deck are the Eight of Wands. So every single card has the Eight of Wands on it, and I can't stand it. But I thought the newer version was the one that had the Eight of Wands on the back. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, it is. The new one is the one.
Okay, I thought it was.
Yeah.
But something about that I just have always had an issue with. I just don't like that imagery. Like there are so many cards in the traditional RWS that, again, evoke so many feelings and emotions when you look at them. It's literally just 8 sticks in the air, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? So in my deck, see if I can, while I'm talking, quickly flip through and find it to show. But I really struggled with how I wanted to depict it, and I was actually able to find it. That didn't take too long. So I wanted that same feeling, but I wanted to like update it a little bit and put a little bit of myself into it. So it's 8 paper airplanes each one, if you see up close, has a little wand attached to the paper airplane.
And they're the chakra colors, are they? Or the or,
Well, I actually what I wanted to represent is actually like the updated LGBT flag, which has, you know, the standard red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, but then it also the updated version includes brown and black to include our POC brothers, sisters, and non-binary individuals.
once
And
you pulled that card out and I could see the top ones.
oh yeah, sorry, I did have it kind of like super close in, but
So
yes,
cool.
so that's what I wanted to represent with those colors, and I just felt like it was a fun way to update it and kind of like you get more of that like zipping through the air kind of feeling from this, I guess, because what do you do with a paper airplane? You throw it and it flies forward, whereas, you know, 8 sticks floating in the air, like what is that?
Yeah,
So
that's a really cool concept to take that original, you know, imagery and then do that with it.
and again, that's one that I can't say exactly why I decided on paper airplanes. It was just something that came to me. Like I said, I was having such an issue trying to figure out how I wanted to depict that card. And something in my head was that just clicked. Paper airplanes popped into my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love that idea. Let me try to see if I can create an image that evokes that feeling that I want. And I got what I was looking for when I created it, and I was like, perfect. That really could have been more of a struggle. So I'm glad I figured out what I wanted to do with it. And I'm having trouble coming up with if there's any other cards in the deck that I really struggled with because I was worried about how people would take them, or, you know, certain things that people want to see in specific cards. I don't really think there was any other ones that I really struggled with. If I think of any, I'll leave a comment down below and update that answer.
I think sometimes if deck creators go too far away, then there are community members who feel that, you know, that's a bridge too far. It's a bit of a stretch. But I think from what I've seen, and again, I haven't got the deck in my hands yet, but from what I've seen, you've been pretty true to, you know, the traditional tarot, but you've been able to put your own interpretation on it, and you've personalized it in ways where it's really important to you, you know, in terms of, you know, representing the underrepresented, and also, you know, not being afraid to go into necessarily into political arenas as well.
Absolutely. That was something that was really important to me.
Yeah.
And I did just think of one. I didn't necessarily have a hard time like creating like or coming up with what I wanted in this card, but I struggled a little bit with whether or not people would resonate with the card the same way I did, or my depiction or my imagery that I put in the card, and that was the King of Pentacles, which is one of my favorite cards in the deck. I mean, all these cards are my babies, but this is one of my favorites, and it's a breastfeeding mother with, you know, the mama bear in the background. And I kind of wanted to show that, you know, not every family has a mom and a dad, or a king and a queen, you know, so to speak. And, you know, a lot of the times the mom is the one that gives that king energy in that family dynamic. And, you know, when you think of like a protector and all that, I think of a mama bear. I don't think of a papa bear. I think of a mama bear doing anything to protect her children, but at the same time also having that nurturing and providing energy.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And then I just wanted to quick show, because this came up when I was looking for that king. This is the Nine of Pentacles I was talking about with the hummingbird, where she's like leaving everywhere she steps, there's gold following in her path. And then there's the little hummingbird in the same colors that are represented in her following behind.
I love that. You know, it's that adage about roads not being paved with gold, but actually she's paving as she's going.
Right as she goes, the road behind her is left covered in gold.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
To post this, because Naomi said, I feel, Zane, that you've really captured moments of these times within your deck. It's awesome.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it, because that's another thing. There's so many issues going on in the world, and issues that are not new issues, especially like what you said earlier about the justice card. Just even though these issues have been around for so long, this past year has really highlighted them and brought them to the forefront where they should have been a long time ago. And that was something I really didn't want to shy away from for this deck, because it's something that's really important to me and something I really wanted to make sure was represented in this deck, because every opportunity I have to throw it in people's faces that we need change, I'm going to take that opportunity and throw it in their face.
Yeah. And do you know what? I mean, it's a powerful card, really powerful image. And I think it will get people talking in the community again.
I hope so.
To review the decks. But by naming people that you've named on those banners and on those flags, you know, it seals it. It seals it in time. And it doesn't matter if people are picking up that deck 20, 30 years from now. It represents what's happening right now. And
absolutely.
That we need justice. And even if we get justice for those two that are named,
it doesn't change what happened. And there's still more work to do.
And we should never forget, you know, and that's why I think cards like that are really important, because it might be the justice card, but it's talking about the fight that happened to, and if we get that justice, that's, you know.
Right. And something
seals it in time.
And something about that card in specific that Chris had brought up and a couple people mentioned, I want to say in like the live chats where the cards were shown, I did not put a title on that justice card. Sorry if you see me looking down. I'm trying to, again, quickly flip through and see if I can find the card to hold up. I did not put a title on that card specific, like on purpose, because I wanted people to have to look at those protest signs that are pictured to see the title of that card. When they're like, oh, okay, I see the number and I know what that traditionally represents in the major arcana, but there's no title. So, you know, what is this card meant to represent? Justice like in a normal deck? Let me look at these signs to find out. And then they're forced to read the signs and read those people's names.
Yeah.
And see that the sign that says justice says no justice, no peace.
Perfect.
So yeah, you see there's the 11 in the top corner.
Yeah.
But no title, because you're going to read that sign that says justice on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. Well done.
Thank you so much.
All right. Wow. Time. I'm going to ask you kind of the closing questions, if you like, before we do paper and plastic. So,
all right.
Do you know, I've got to say, I could carry on talking to you.
So could I. And I'm sorry, I'm giving you such long-winded answers that it's just been like...
There's a difference between giving thorough and well thought out answers to long-winded. Long-winded is not what you are. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So if you could go back to your 16-year-old self, knowing everything that you know now, what sort of conversation would you have?
Oh gosh. Starting off with the deep questions here, Simon. I think if I went back to talk to my 16-year-old self, the main thing I would want to stress is don't worry about don't give any thought to what other people think about you. Because even to this day, I have an issue of, I love myself and I love where I am in my life, and I wouldn't change anything that I've done. But if I could talk to myself back then, I would say, don't focus on what other people think, because I have such an issue of getting caught up in, is the way I'm presenting myself rubbing people the wrong way? And then I start to focus on that. And then it's just like, I worry too much about other people. And then these other people are like, why are you worrying? We all love you. Like, do you? And I spent all this time focusing on what they were thinking about me, that I missed out on all these opportunities right in front of me. And I think that's what I tell myself. Realize that you love yourself because you should and you deserve to. And as long as you're being a good person and staying true to you and your ideals and beliefs, then what other people think about you or are going to say about you literally has nothing to do with your life and doesn't affect you at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what I tell myself. Just be true in who you are and stick to your guns and always stand up for those around you and stand up for what you believe in. And no one else's opinion matters if you're living your life that way.
Exactly. And you draw, light reflects, and you draw people to you because you are being who you are. If you're trying to be somebody else, then you draw different people towards you. So yeah, brilliant, lovely advice.
Thank you.
The dinner guest question. If you're having a dinner party, one ultimate guest and two others, who would they be?
Again, I know these questions are coming. Why didn't I prepare for this? So it's one definite and then two others, you said, right?
Yeah, one ultimate.
One ultimate.
Who you really want there, top of the list, and then you can bring two others. They're not support acts by any means, but one ultimate.
Gotcha. Oh gosh, I think I'd have to say for my number one ultimate guest. You know, maybe just because she's been someone who's been such a huge part of my journey since I was young, I would maybe say Silver Raven Wolf.
Oh.
She played a huge part in my spiritual path and my just witchy path in general. And to be able to like pick her brain would be amazing. And then I'm going to be a little corny and say for one of my other guests, it would have to be you. Because like I said, you were one of the first two people I discovered in this community. And you've been such a huge influence on like my tarot journey and me being confident enough to start making my own videos and create my own content. And I can't say thank you enough for the part you've played in my journey.
Well, I'll happily accept. I'll come to dinner with you.
Awesome. Hey, we can make that a reality, hopefully, after pandemic's done, after Corona takes a hike. And then for my third one, teenage me would like murder me if I didn't say Holly Marie Combs. And if, for anybody who doesn't know who she is, she played Piper on Charmed.
Charmed. I was thinking of Buffy for a second because I never watched that. The film Charmed or the series Charmed?
The series Charmed, the original OG series Charmed.
Okay.
Because that's the only Charmed I will reference. No shade to the people that love the new Charmed, but that's not Charmed to me. Anyway.
Film, wasn't they? Am I getting
a Charmed film? No.
Oh, I'm thinking of The Craft.
The Craft.
Yeah.
They use the same theme song and everything, so I could see how you would mix those up, but or like combine them together. But Holly Marie Combs, she played Piper on Charmed, and I've just always like followed like her career, and I've always like loved her, and I'd have to probably say her for my third guest.
Brilliant. And then I suppose my final question is, and bringing in tarot, creating decks, your witchy practice, what would you say through all of that you've learned most about yourself? What has tarot or your witchy practice taught you most about who you are?
Oh gosh. I would have to say it's really solidified in me that I'm someone who should follow, like, I don't know how to word this. Like, it's really instilled like trust in myself, you know, and trusting myself and my intuition and like not second guessing myself. And I think that's really something that it's instilled in me and like taught me is to trust my feelings and trust my intuition and trust my gut and, you know, go for what feels right because it's going to take me in the right direction.
Perfect. And I smiled there, not because of what you're saying, but I just happened to flash Sue's comment that said, "You've not watched Buffy, Simon?"
Wait, I didn't even pick up on that, but now, yeah, you've never watched Buffy?
I'm already, you know, kind of tarred and feathered in the community for not watching things like Harry Potter and Star Trek and all that sort of stuff. Now, Buffy, I've admitted that live. But I do have The Craft on DVD and I love it even now.
It's one of my all-time favorite movies, if not my all-time favorite movie.
And Practical Magic. I love Practical Magic as well.
That's another one of my top 3. Absolutely love that movie.
Brilliant. All right. Shall we play Paper or Plastic?
Absolutely. But I want to make an amendment to my previous statement, if I can, about who's invited to dinner.
Okay.
I'm going to change my ultimate one because I was having trouble like thinking on the spot. So I copped out and said Silver Raven Wolf because the book was right beside me. And the more I think about it, and we're talking about Buffy now, I'm going to say Allison Hannigan that played Willow on Buffy because I'd have to say she's probably my all-time favorite depiction of a witch on a TV channel or a TV series or movie.
Is she from American Pie?
Yes, the redhead.
This one time at band camp?
Yes, that's her.
See, I know a little bit, even though I've never watched it. That kind of sticks in my mind that she was in Buffy as Willow.
Yeah, she's my all-time favorite. I'd have That's a big statement, but I stick to that. She's my all-time favorite depiction of a witch, I think, in any kind of like pop culture reference.
And Jen says, and How I Met Your Mother.
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
And now she hosts a reality competition show based on like sleight of hand magicianry.
Oh.
She's the hostess or the host of that show because she played Willow Rosenberg. So I guess because they're doing a show about real magic and sleight of hand and whatnot, they tapped her to be the host.
Excellent.
Anyway, sorry, I keep distracting you and taking up more time and not letting you ask these questions.
Like the comments, everybody's having a riot. They're like, this one time at band camp.
Never look at a flute the same way again.
Yes. All right. So, paper or plastic?
Paper.
Oracle or tarot?
Tarot.
YouTube or Instagram?
YouTube. I deleted my Instagram.
Peanut butter or jelly?
Peanut butter, absolutely.
Big parties or small gatherings?
Small gatherings.
Wait or Crowley?
Wait, absolutely.
Bath or shower?
Shower. I don't do baths. It's like human soup.
Bordered or borderless?
Borderless.
Dark and creepy or rainbows and unicorns?
Oh, they both have their place and they both have their place in my heart, but I'm going to say dark.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Indie or mass?
Another one that, we're going to go with indie. Cardstock.
Yeah, it's all about cardstock. Tablet or PC?
PC.
Save or spend?
Spend, absolutely.
Money or free time?
Free time.
Phone calls or FaceTime?
Social anxiety. I'm not the biggest fan of either, but I'll say FaceTime.
Movies at home or in the cinema?
Used to be in the cinema, but now I'll say at home.
Large or small cards?
Large.
Life after death or total extinction?
Oh, life after death, 100%.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Woodland forest or sandy beaches?
Woodland forest. I hate sand and I don't do the ocean.
Toilet roll hanging over or under?
The only way there is over.
Oh, I had such hope then when he was like, the only way there is going to say it. He's going to say it.
I'm not one of those people that minds it being under, but I love to like tear into people and joke with them if they put it under. I make fun of my stepmom because she always does the roll under.
Oh, see, she knows where it's at. I'm my mother's son. My mum, she would go into any of our houses and turn it to under if we even dared to put it the other way around.
See, I'm obsessive compulsive, so I think a lot of it for me is just like that's the way I'm used to it. That's the way I did it my whole life. So any other way feels off to me and like triggers my OCD. So
just before we finish then, I know we've gone over by a few minutes, but
sorry everyone.
That's good. Do you want to, as I'm shuffling, do you want to talk about a particular deck that you're really enjoying at the moment working with?
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the floor to do that. I will have to absolutely say Ethany's Modern Love Tarot has been one that I knew. I just had a feeling from the cards I saw before it was released, because I did pre-order this when she first announced it on her channel last year sometime, or early in 2020, I want to say she announced it on her channel. And I pre-ordered it right away just from the few cards I saw. But when I got the deck, I was not prepared for how much I was going to fall in love with these cards and this imagery.
It does amazing.
Yeah, the artist is, her name is Lucy Morningstar.
Yeah.
That's the name she goes by. I believe her social media might be or some of her social media might be under her real last name or her born last name, which I don't remember off the top of my head. But she goes by Lucy Morningstar. Her artwork's incredible. I want to say it's all pastel oil paintings. And I haven't done a very good job of showing the cards while I'm talking, but here's just a few quick images. The intuitive properties of this deck are just incredible, and I keep saying this, but they evoke so much feeling in me, which I think is why I just love them so much. Look at that Lover's card.
It's beautiful.
It's everything to me, and I just adore it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I will let you show your card that you pulled now and stop talking and running my mouth.
Oh, wow. So we've got the Eight of Cups.
Awesome.
The deck that I'm using here is the oh, do you know I do this all the time with decks? And I haven't got the box in front of me. I've just got the cards out because I have it on the stand. Help me. Chris knows, he's just done a walkthrough of it. But anyway, I'll give the interpretation. So on here it says boredom and moving on. But I always like to think the Eight of Cups is about moving away from something that no longer serves you and embracing new values, whatever they might be. It could be that, yes, you could be leaving a situation that's been quite delicate, quite tricky, or, in some cases, it might have been a dangerous situation and you're making the step to move away. But very often it's about exploring different lifestyles, and some of us will get to a point in our life where, and it's natural. We shouldn't be too hard on ourselves for it. If something's no longer giving us that same sort of positive energy, and we're not getting the same sort of buzz from it, it's not motivating us or inspiring us, then it's okay to kind of think, well, I'm going to move into a new direction. We've talked about it in our interview tonight about, where we've been in perhaps different kind of religious settings, but we find that is that your version?
Yes.
Where we find ourselves in situations that are no longer conducive to us. So we embrace others and we look to start afresh and go on a new journey and a new path. And that's what life is, actually.
Absolutely.
Life is made up of moments like the Eight of Cups, where we're constantly traveling and we go in search of new purposes, things that give us new meanings, things that excite us, and things that fulfill us on an emotional level. Because remember, we're talking of cups energy here. So it's okay
Absolutely.
to start afresh and find new values that inspire us. What was your inspiration behind your card there, Zane?
So if you see here, it is a depiction of, I'll say, a mer person, and they are leaving those cups behind. If you see, they're swimming through an archway to kind of show like that doorway into a new path, a new adventure. But also because, like I said, The Little Mermaid, the Disney version of The Little Mermaid, was like my favorite movie as a child. Something about merfolk will always make me think of her, even though it might have been a toxic situation, putting all of her eggs in one basket and following a man that she never even met before. She was willing to, leave everything behind for something that in her mind was bigger and better things, greener pastures. She was willing to explore and put herself out there and just go for it, which again, in her case, could have used a little more forethought, but it's still just that energy of, being embodying that young energy and being willing to just go for it and try it with no like fear of what could come. Like, get yourself out of that situation where you're not happy and just move forward and explore new things. And that's why I definitely wanted to depict a mer person in this card, plus, cups, water suit. But that's what I was going for with this card.
Brilliant. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking when you saw the card. Let me elaborate on it a little bit.
Zane, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And I know I always say it, the time has just flown, and
it has.
I've not had tarot times in 20 minutes. I could have carried on talking to you because you're so interesting. Really.
Thank you so much. I've had such a blast talking to you and being here with everyone in the chat, even though I wasn't really good at keeping up with the chat.
That's fine. And you are, people say it and it's true. You're one of the nicest people. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for being you. Thank you for your creations. I look forward to receiving it. And yeah, thank you to everybody who's been here and supported.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Always lovely. Next Saturday, we go from Zane Hughes to Matt Hughes, creator of the Ethereal Visions Tarot, will be coming into the cave, and I'll get to do an interview with him. And in 20 minutes' time, over on the Tarot Times, I'll be joining Becca and Elle for our monthly tarot magazine type broadcast. So that'll be in 20 minutes' time.
Can't wait for that.
And again, thank you, Zane. And
yeah, thank you so much again for having me.
you're welcome. And do stay on at the end. But to everybody else, thank you for being here. Look after yourselves. And until next time, go in peace. Namaste and blessed be.